Okay, so welcome to the first ever live on the Atheist channel. So it's my birthday today, and since I can't go out and celebrate with my friends and family, like I would have done that, but I can't do that really. So I'm in lockdown right now, and I thought, what better way to spend this birthday than to celebrate it with all of you? And so here's the live stream, right? And today we're going to be discussing a few things, right? So first of all, we'll be discussing whatever you've seen on the thumbnail, which is like how the similarities, the eerie similarity between like non-vegan leftists and like the MAGA cult, right? And if you're like watching right now, do say hello, right? Welcome. If you're watching this after the live stream has ended, want to make sure if I'm live right now. So if you can see me, okay, so I think we're live, yeah. So if you're watching like after the live stream has ended, right, there will probably be chapters down below. So make sure you use that. And I think that's all for the introduction. Not much to be said. Okay, so as you can see, I'll be taking questions at the end of this, right? So yeah, if you have any questions, to be sure to leave them in the comment section down, like in the live chat, right? I'll be taking questions from the live chat, and yeah, that's it. And if you like me to answer something immediately, right, or if you'd like to give me a gift, sort of, I guess, you could use the super chat feature, right? I'll stop the live stream and I'll answer your question immediately. So yeah, there's that. And with that, I think that's enough with the introduction. Yeah. And so first, to begin, let's like define our terms, right? Like, what do we mean by non-vegan leftists? What do we mean by the MAGA cult, and so on? So let's start with the right-hand side of that equation. The MAGA cult is okay. MAGA stands for Make America Great Again, and it was a political slogan used by Donald Trump, right? It was he used it in his campaign for the 2016 election, and I think 2020 election as well, right? And so yeah, that's what MAGA means, right? It's the political slogan of Donald Trump, and the MAGA cult basically is referring to all the people who are like obsessed with Donald Trump, who follow him sort of religiously, and that's what I'm referring to when I say MAGA cult, right? It does not refer to all conservatives. It does not refer to everyone who is who leans right of center, or like it's not referring to everybody, right? So that's the MAGA cult. Now, what do I mean by non-vegan leftists? You see, leftist is a sort of technical term, right? It sort of summarizes, right? It summarizes the political economic position of someone, right? Where they lie on the economic political spectrum. But that's what it means technically. But that's not how the word is understood in present day use, unfortunately or fortunately. Today, the word is sort of used as a sort of like referring to everyone who is like who is who likes to advocate for social justice and like equality and equity and all that kind of stuff. That is not an accurate use of the term, but unfortunately, that's how the word is used. For example, I will give you an example. People often say that there is a sort of leftist bias in large corporations, but that makes no sense in the technical term, in the technical sense of the word, because well, leftists are against large corporations. So large corporations are not leftist. But they do, in fact, these large corporations will often push out like social justice, very social justice type of messaging, right? And they do that mostly not because they care about these social justice issues, they mostly do it because they want to make money, and like putting this stuff out makes money. So like that's how I'm using the term leftist here, right? I'm referring to those because that's how the word is understood popularly. A non-vegan leftist is someone, of course, who cares about justice and social equality and all that kind of jazz, but not when it comes to non-human animals. Okay, so I see a sort of similarity between these two groups, right? So there's that about that's what I mean, right? So these are the groups I'm referring to, and how are they similar? Okay, let me just we'll get into one like very specific example soon, right? But what I want to do right now, I'd like to sort of give you a sort of starting point, and the starting point would be that think about how the Make America Great Again like political campaign was mostly based on like an America first policy, right? Like America comes first, and then we'll kind of think about the rest of the world. That was the policy that Donald Trump was sort of campaigning for. That was the idea, the ideology. Non-vegan leftists and like non-vegans just generally, they do the same sort of, right, with when it comes to non-human animals, right? They care about, they will openly admit and say, no, human beings come first, right? How can you care how, like, you are so, they will say things like, you are so privileged to be like advocating for non-human animals when there is so much human suffering in the world, right? That's the kind of thing that non-vegan leftists and non-vegans in general tend to say, right? Even though non-vegan leftists supposedly care a lot about equality, right? But when it comes to excluding a certain group, they just exclude this group, just as the MAGA cult sort of excluded the like everyone who is not an American, right? So that's a sort of similarity. And like recently, right, especially last summer, what happened was there was this incident about police brutality, right, with the killing of George Floyd, right? And that was obviously very unfair and like totally unacceptable. Now, what happened as a response to that, right? Some people claim that there is like systemic racial injustice in the United States of America, targeted at ethnic minorities, especially Black people. That was the claim, sort of. Now, maybe someone could show that that's not true, that there is no racial injustice, and that may be possible. I'm not saying that is the case, right? I'm saying that that's a possible valid response if someone could show that, right? What is not a valid response, sort of, right? Okay, so when these people were advocating for that, right, they said that Black Lives Matter, right? So they were reminding the system that Black Lives Matter. The system seems to act as if Black lives do not matter, and some people responded to that by saying that all lives matter. But that's not the point now, is it? Like the claim of the BLM movement, whether or not you agree with the BLM movement, it was never that only Black Lives Matter, right? It was that like the system seems to be forgetting that Black Lives Matter. So some people responded to that with saying all lives matter, and most of the people who were doing that were in the MAGA cult, right? The sort of Trump supporters, Trump fans kind of people, right? And I see a similarity with that response of saying all lives matter and saying like what non-vegan leftists do, right? And let me show you a sort of example of this, right? How do I add this? Share screen, yeah. Chrome tab. Okay, not like this. Okay, do you see this? Yeah. Okay, oh, by the way, I forgot to do something. Hold on. So before we continue with this, I'd just like to let you know what we're discussing like later, right? Because there's something really interesting coming up, and I wouldn't want anyone to miss it because like it's a controversial topic, sort of. But I would still like to talk about it. So first, we'll discuss the similarities between the hashtag All Lives Matter movement and how non-vegan leftists react to animal rights movement. And next, we'll discuss the classism of leftists who are supposedly against a class-based society, right? So we'll discuss the classism of non-vegan leftists, a certain example of that anyway. Third, and this is the most interesting bit, okay? This is the most interesting bit. I found a vegan, okay? A vegan who says that vegans should pay slaughterhouse workers, okay? Vegans should pay slaughterhouse workers. And you don't want to miss that, so stick around for that, all right? So yeah, that's coming up. By the way, thank you so much for all the birthday wishes. Oh my God, there's so many. Thank you so much. Anyway, let's continue, right? Okay, so here's the post. Wait. Yeah, can you see this? If someone could confirm from me that this is like the screen is showing up on the screen, the post from Impact, the account that I had on my cover for this YouTube video. If you could just confirm that you're seeing the post, that would be great. Anyway, so this is the post, right? This right here is the post. So you see this page, right? Let me show you. This page has like a lot of followers, right? So this page is at 1.8 million followers. See, that's a lot of people to whom they have like put this post out, and this post has 135,000 likes, right? So yeah, so basically the post starts off with saying that you can't preach for animal rights while ignoring human rights. And on the surface of this, this might seem like something reasonable, right? But let's sort of dig deeper into what they're trying to say. Okay, so here's the second slide of that post. It says, prioritizing the rights and well-being of animals while ignoring human rights, especially agricultural workers, is a symptom of white veganism. And this is I hope you're seeing the similarity already, right? You see, when animal liberation advocates advocate for like animal liberation, right? They're not saying that only the lives of non-human animals matter, right? We're not saying that. What we're saying is, look, here is a group that is like oppressed, right? And like oppressed to a great, like, it's so, the amount of oppression is so large, right? And so we're trying to advocate for them. We're not saying that human rights do not matter. It's that we're focused on this, right? We're focused on this. Just as Black Lives Matter activists were focused on Black lives, right? And they and we can do this for every group. If you think like I'm just picking out Black people in particular, I'm not doing that. I'm just using an example that many people are familiar with. If you'd like me to use a different example that I have the lived experience of, then I could use the example that, you know, I'm Northeast Indian. So if someone advocates for the liberation of Northeast Indians, they're not sort of ignoring every other Indian, right? Even though Indians in general are like marginalized in general. So we can't have that, right? So this makes no sense to me. And notice this part, especially, it says especially agricultural workers. Now, the part that this post just doesn't understand is that there needs to be far more agricultural workers for the production of animal-based food, right? Because like to produce a certain amount of animal-based food that would feed a certain amount of people, you need far more workers because you need far more plants to feed those animals, right? So it doesn't get it. But anyway, I hope you've seen the similarity there between the MAGA cult and this. Okay, so here's the next slide in this. It says white veganism. Oh, by the way, just in this slide, it says especially agricultural workers, but it does not mention slaughterhouse workers. Notice how this sort of leftist page, right? It picks out those like underprivileged human beings, like using whose suffering will allow them to justify or excuse their own greed. But it kind of does not mention slaughterhouse workers, right? And again, we'll talk about this later in the video. We found a vegan who says that slaughterhouse workers should be paid by vegans. Okay, so stick around for that. So, but yeah, they only mention the kind of workers that would sort of benefit them. Yeah. Okay, so the next slide in this talks about white veganism preaches a lifestyle centered around liberating animals, but ignores issues like the exploitation of indigenous farmers for popular vegan foods. Okay, see the problem with that is that popular vegan foods are just plant-based foods, and vegans are not the only people eating them, right? And so like vegans make up like what, 1%, 2%, yeah, 3% at most of the population. So the production of avocados cannot be blamed on vegans, right? Like everybody eats avocados, whether or not, like the people who eat avocados, right, eat avocados, whether or not they're vegan. Like I have certainly never eaten, I've never even seen an avocado, believe me. So there's that. So like, yeah, vegans cannot be blamed for this. Local farmers being unable to compete with lower prices of high demand foods set by large agricultural corporations, example, chickpeas. So the problem that they seem to be like rallying against is not veganism, right? It's how food is produced, right? And like this applies to not just vegan food. It applies to like even non-vegan food, right? So yeah, like large corporations, like meat industries, right? Large meat industries, they set the prices, right? And so if you're going to go down that route, well, you have to advocate, like account for everything, right? Not just the one that favors your narrative. The degradation of land and resources used to supply popularized vegan foods like almond milk and soy products. Again, this is basically the same point all over again, right? we must understand that, first of all, about 83% of all the global farmland is dedicated to animal agriculture, right? Dedicated to the production of animal-based food, and it produces just 18%, right? So if anything is degrading the degrading land and resources, it's animal-based food, not vegan food. So this is just a lack of understanding of the science on the part of impact, right? Okay, let's see what this says. So white veganism also excludes BIPOC. It paints an image that promotes whiteness around veganism. And here they say, like in 2018, 8% of Black people identified as vegan, whereas only 3% of white people identified as vegan. BIPOC have existed in these spaces for the majority, but are being pushed out because they don't fit the narrative. Okay, here you have to see the like stunning sort of similarity, not similarities, the stunning irony, right? The stunning irony of all of this. So this post, it sort of, it like says, it complains about white people being overrepresented in like veganism, right? But what it then goes on to do is like malign veganism by like associating it with like white people and like, yeah, it associates veganism with white people. If they truly wanted to solve the issue, right? If they truly care for representation, they should work with BIPOC people. It's such a ridiculous term, isn't it? BIPOC, POC, BAME. Like, just say, like, yeah, these are such ridiculous terms. BIPOC, POC. You basically, it's like saying, it's basically the same as like saying POC, right? Person of color is basically like saying colored person. It's just so ridiculous. But anyway, if they truly wanted to like solve for this, they should have worked with someone, right? They should have worked with someone from these communities, which they consider to be crucial, and like create a post about veganism that sort of represents them, right? Represents such people. If Impact wants someone to work with, I'd be happy to help. But I imagine there are many more people, right, who are maybe perhaps more qualified than me, and like Impact could reach out to them as well. But they don't. They continue to sort of malign veganism as this privileged thing, and yeah, that's what they're doing. Okay, here's where the sort of next similarity between like the MAGA cult and non-vegan leftists come in, right? You see, like read this line. It says, to promote the animal rights narrative, certain examples of activism directly compare animal agriculture to racism and genocide. Okay, I will tell you what the similarity is very soon. But first, I'd like to point out something. I'd like to point out the word usage here, right? The word usage is like they're using soft language in one part and like hard language in the other part. You see, certain examples of activism directly compare animal agriculture to racism and genocide. You see, here in this part, what we're comparing is not animal agriculture to racism and genocide. We're comparing speciesism to racism, right? And the mass killing of non-human animals to the mass killing of human beings, that is genocide, right? So they're using soft language here to like present it as if like, you know, these two things are not comparable. But when you phrase it accurately, right, it becomes far more evident why these things are comparable. Okay, I'm just let me show you one example of how this is similar to what the sort of MAGA cult does. Okay, I think I'll just stop this. Yeah, okay. So let me show you one more screen. Share screen. Chrome tab. Here's the example of how this is similar to what the MAGA cult does. Oops. Okay. Read this. Where's the mute button? President Trump called El Salvador, Haiti, shithole countries. Okay, and this is not just something. This is not something that's just you'll see on this like this news website, right? It was all over the news, right? Trump referred to Haiti and African nations as shithole nations the day shithole entered the presidential lexicon. Trump decries immigrants from, and I'm not going to keep saying it, but yeah, he used that term, right? So now what I want everybody to do here is to like ask yourselves, right? Ask yourselves, would it ever offend any one of you? Would it ever offend any one of you if Americans were compared to the people from what Trump referred to as shithole countries? Like, would it offend you at all if, like, let's say, ethnic minorities in the United States were compared to people belonging to these countries that Trump referred to? No, it wouldn't, right? If someone does get offended by that, right, like, how dare you compare this ethnic minority in the United States to people from those countries, right? that person, right, that person has a bias against people from those countries, right, that Trump referred to like completely inappropriately. So yeah, that's again, that's what's happening here. Let me show you the post from Impact again. Here we go. So like the reason that Impact sort of sees all of this as problems is because they have this sort of bias against non-human animals, right? They have a bias against non-human animals, which makes them think that you cannot be compared, right? Human beings cannot be compared to non-human animals. So basically, it's not their sense of justice that stops them from making these comparisons. It is the sense of prejudice, right? They have a prejudice against non-human animals. So yeah, there's that. Yeah, that's the reason they can't stand these comparisons. Again, I think this is the final slide. Yeah. So here we see again. Advocating for so Impact says advocating for a movement based on animal rights narrative without the inclusion of human rights is a failed attempt at virtue. But just imagine like animal rights here, animals, right? Non-human animals are an oppressed group, right? Relative to human beings, relative to all human beings, because like no matter how underprivileged you are, society at large will not accept if you are tortured and killed for like someone else's temporary pleasure, right? There might be someone who does it, but society at large will largely condemn that, right? So yeah, so that animals here is the oppressed group, humans here is the privileged group. But like, imagine if this was done with any other social justice movement. Imagine if someone said like advocating for a movement based on the rights of ethnic minorities, let's say in the United States, without the inclusion of the rights of without the rights of white people is a failed attempt at virtue. How ridiculous would that be? But that's exactly what's happening here. So yeah, there's that. Here they say next, why can't I speak? They say that there is nothing wrong with going vegan to stop supporting animal exploitation, environmental degradation, or for health reasons. Of course, there's nothing wrong with it. Why would there be anything wrong with it? But there is something incredibly wrong for paying for the torture of innocent animals, of innocent non-human animals, for your temporary taste pleasure. Because we don't need any kind of animal product, right, in order to be healthy. It's not a necessity, right? So there's nothing wrong with going vegan, right? But there is absolutely something wrong with continuing to support the torture of innocent beings, right? Yeah. Here, the last thing that they say is, but veganism as a movement must encompass the human rights issues in the agricultural industry and include BIPOC voices. Now, the only thing I have to say to that, Impact, is it would be great if you could like make a post on veganism, like saying just that, right? And, like including BIPOC voices. And like I left a comment here, like many people left comments, right? About how they're like just not including BIPOC voices, and like all of these posts is a lot of it is misinformation. So what did they do? You would imagine that what they did was create a post where they sort of include what they call BIPOC voices. But is that what they did? Unfortunately, no. That's absolutely not what they did, right? I'll show you the post soon, but let me just go to the chat really quickly. What do you, like, is there any question here? I'm not sure. Let me just go through this really quick, right? So thank you everyone for the birthday wishes. There are so many here. I might miss some. So like if you think I might miss your comments, like there's no issue with like sending it again. All right. So yeah. If you have any questions, by the way, do leave them here, right? I will take questions from the live chat. So, so yeah. Okay. Anyway, we were discussing what impact does, right? And yeah, so impact does that. And after that ridiculous post, you would imagine where they stress so much on what's the word? Amplifying. Yeah, that's the social media word. Amplifying BIPOC voices. You would imagine that the next post they make would sort of amplify BIPOC voices. The next post they make about veganism. But guess what they did? They didn't do that, because of course they didn't. Let me show you another post that this very same account made, and this account sort of it epitomizes everything wrong with non-vegan leftism. Again, I'm using leftism in a non-academic sense, in a non-technical sense. So in case you missed what I mean by leftism, it's right there in the beginning of this video. It will be on this side, right? Yeah, somewhere around here. Do check that out, right? I'm not using leftist in the technical term. Let me show you what they posted later on. Let me add the screen. Share screen, Chrome tab. Okay. What's wrong? I hate this. Yeah, okay. Okay, let me just quickly. Okay, so here's the post. This one has 256,000 likes. The last one had 135,000, by the way, if you don't remember. Look at this. It says, subtle ways you may be classist without realizing. And as far as I can tell, the rest of this post is fine, right? I haven't actually read all of it. Like I went through like the rest of the post quickly to see if there's anything else about veganism, but there isn't. Just this one slide. So I haven't read the rest of the post, but as far as I can tell, it's good. But anyway, look here what they're doing. So like, this is one of the ways that you apparently can be a classist without realizing it. So what's the way? If you assume that everyone can afford to go vegan or vegetarian. Now, the first problem here is, of course, that they're conflating veganism and vegetarianism. And like this doesn't make sense. Vegetarians and meat eaters are in the same category, right? Not vegans and vegetarians, right? I'll get to this post soon, but I'd just like to address this. Like vegetarians, but what they do is they say that they say that if you kill an animal, right? If you kill an animal and you put that, if you put that animal, cut the animal into pieces and serve, cook it and serve it to me, that like they will eat the animal. They won't eat that animal, right? That's what the vegetarians say, right? But if you sort of exploit that same animal, right, for their milk or their eggs, right? As far as I understand, in the Western world, eating eggs is still considered vegetarian. It's not considered vegetarian in India, but whatever. Vegetarian drinking milk is still considered vegetarianism. So yeah. So if the vegetarian says that if you exploit that same animal for their bodily secretions for their eggs and then kill the animal, but as long as you sort of don't bring that animal on my plate, right? It's all well and good. So yeah, that's not in the same category as vegans who say that all animal exploitation should be, as far as possible, avoided, right? Yeah. So vegans and vegetarians are not in the same category. By the way, we have a super chat. Okay. Adi Skywalker says, happy birthday. Thank you, Adarsh. That's your name, right? Thank you so much. So Adarsh here has been following me for quite a while, and he has been really supportive of all the work that I do. So thank you. I appreciate it. Anyway, let's get back to the post. Anyway, so here it says vegan food is expensive and grocery stores do not exist in every neighborhood. Many people, so they basically, first of all, they say that vegan food is expensive. It's not. It's expensive if you think that a Starbucks latte is a basic need, but it surely isn't, right? A Starbucks latte is not something you need to drink every day, right? It's not something you need to drink like at all. Right? I've never tried a Starbucks latte. If you look at really expensive vegan alternatives to like animal flesh, yeah, that's expensive for sure. But it's not expensive to buy rice and dal and beans and vegetables. So these foods are very cheap, and you can buy them, right? So veganism is not expensive. It's expensive if you have a sort of very privileged outlook on the world about what you consider to be vegan. So yeah, that's where this narrative comes from. And the problem here, the similarity, I would say, is how they use the suffering of the very real suffering, right? The very real suffering of poor people for their own greed, right? They're saying that like this person who has the time to post on a social media platform like this, that person is not poor, right? A platform with 1.8 million followers, right? This is not a poor person, right? The team is not made up of poor people. So they're using the suffering of very real suffering of poor people for excusing their own greed, right? And that I think is quite ridiculous. And this is what a lot of people do, using the suffering of others for their own greed. And okay, before we move on to the next topic, there is a super chat. Wow. Okay. Crash Carcass. I know your name too. Your name is not Crash Carcass now, is it? You're Stacy, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, so Stacy says, can I now virtue signal and say that I have given to a marginalized and indigenous person? You can. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it. That's wow, that's a lot of money. But yeah, thank you. Thank you for the birthday wish. And yeah, that's amazing. Thank you. And yeah, make sure to virtue signal. Make sure to virtue signal. And tell them how much you support BIPOC or POC voices, right? Make sure to do that. But anyway, in all seriousness, thank you so much. This is incredible. Thank you again, Stacy. Anyway, let me pin that comment again. Yeah. Do we have any questions in the live chat? I'm sorry, I start blabbering and I forget to look in the live chat unless a super chat comes up, which is in really bright colors, right? So if there are any questions that I keep ignoring, please just keep sending them back because I sometimes miss. But what we're going to do now is the most interesting bit, I think, and quite frankly, I think that this should have been the title and the thumbnail. This should have been on the title and the thumbnail, but it was not because I don't know. I do silly things sometimes. Okay, before we move on to that, there is another super chat. Oh my God! Thank you so much. This is amazing. But before I address this, let me just quickly give you a summary of what's coming up. What's coming up is a vegan who says that vegans should pay slaughterhouse workers Yeah, that's what's coming up. We'll discuss that, okay? So stick around for that. Don't leave now. Anyway, here's another super chat from Spaghetti. Okay. The super chat is, non-vegan leftists think they are so morally superior to conservatives. But if they were born to a conservative family, they would probably be a conservative too. Wow, that's a great point, and I want to talk about that. And I will talk about that now. And but before that, I need to drink water because I've been talking for a while. Much better. Okay. All right. Yeah. So the reason that, so I recently read a book. Okay, not recently. It's been a while now. It's a book I recommend for everyone to check out, even if you don't agree with the person who wrote that book in general. The book is called Why We. I keep forgetting the order of the name of the book, but it is something like Why We Love Dogs, Eat Pigs, and Wear Cows. Maybe I've messed those up, but that's the general name of the book. Yeah, so that's the name of the book. It's written by Dr. Melanie Joy, and it sort of explains why people are so opposed to eating dogs, eating some animals in some cultures, but are completely okay with eating other animals. And it's because it's not because these are evil people, right? It's because this very unjust, right, and oppressive behavior was indoctrinated into us right when we were very young, right? I, for example, am 22 years old now, but until the time I was 14 years old, 14 and a half, I kept eating animals, right? And I never knew about any of that, right? Like the horrors of the industry. And because I was conditioned into this, I had never questioned it until I saw it with my eyes, saw an animal being killed right in front of my eyes, right? So I never questioned any of it. And that's what happens to all of us, right? Like we were born into non-vegan families, we never questioned it until a lot of time. And until we did, right? Until we realized the immorality of all of this. And the same sort of goes with being a conservative, doesn't it? Right. Now, I'm not saying conservative or anything like that, right? I disagree with conservatives, right? I think they're wrong on most things. But yeah, being conservative is sort of similar, right? Like being conservative, liberal, or whatever you are, right? Whatever religion you're born into, whatever political ideology you're born into, you sort of take that up, right? Until something else influences you, and then that changes you, right? Like if you're born into a conservative family, you'll take those values until you meet someone who tells you otherwise. But if you never met that someone else, well, you would never you just hold on to that, right? And if you go if you live in your own echo chamber, right, it's all you hear, conservative opinions. That's all you hear, right? So there's that, right? And yeah, so non-vegan leftists, they will say they're so much better than conservatives because they've done their thinking, because they have their ethical heads screwed on, but they don't really, now is it? And this is what's made me veganism really has made me realize about just how much of this how much of one's beliefs is because of cultural biases, right? So yeah, I agree with that. Okay, so here comes the most interesting bit, which is a vegan who says that vegans should pay slaughterhouse workers. Hold on, I'm just bringing that up. And while we're doing that, why don't you tell me how you're enjoying this post? Is this post, not this post, this live stream, right? Are you liking this live stream? This is my first ever live stream on YouTube, so I don't know how I'm doing. So like feedback is appreciated, really. So I think we're ready to go. Share screen. Nope. Share screen. Where is it? Yeah. Can you see this? Okay. Okay. Before we address this, I'd like to explain something to you. Like it's going to be used repeatedly in this post, and if you don't understand that word, it's not going to make any sense to you, right? So the word is, by the way, yeah, okay. So the word is Savarna, right? So in India, there is a sort of caste system, right? And it was like it was the norm for thousands of years, right? And on the basis of that sort of caste system, people were discriminated against, right? And like the people who were sort of excluded from that, right, who were like the very bottom sort of the caste system, or you can say who are the outcasts, right? Well, they are called Dalits, right? And anyone who is a part of that caste system with varying degrees of privilege, right, they're called Savarnas, right? They belong to the Varna system. That's in either Hindi or Sanskrit, I'm not sure. But yeah, so they're like the privileged people. Savarnas are privileged people, right? And everyone else is outcast, right? That's if you live within that sort of Hindu caste-based society. If you're like, but there were also indigenous tribes. I hate to keep saying this again and again, but if you're like an indigenous tribal person, you sort of fall outside of all of that, and like the advent of this caste system and everything also affects indigenous people and how they were oppressed. So yeah. So like I'm indigenous tribal. I just hate saying this all over again, but I know because I'm addressing this, someone's going to accuse me of being a Savarna vegan and like not understanding the point of this post made by a Dalit person. So yeah, I don't like to play this game, but because I know that people are going to play this game, let me like stop the let me stop that before it even begins, right? So yeah, anyway, with that cleared up, let's begin. Whoops, not like this. Not like this either. Yeah, okay, like this, better. By the way, if you're still having some struggle understanding the concept of Savarnas, right, what you could do, although I would not recommend it, but if you're having some trouble grasping at the concept, you could kind of say that Savarnas are like the white people in India. Right? It's not that simple. Like I would not recommend understanding the caste system in that manner, but like in case you need a working framework, sort of. So yeah, the Savarnas are the white people of India. Everyone else is like the POC of India. Okay, here we go. So here this post says, for Savarna vegans, this is not a safe space for Savarna vegans who exclusively pretend to fight for animal rights. What's this? Like, how do you know if someone is pretending to do something or like if they're genuinely committed to it? You cannot judge people's intentions so easily. I think it's almost impossible to judge someone's intentions. You have to look at their actions and like just judge them by those, right? You have to judge people's actions because you cannot really know people's intentions. So yeah, and there is nothing wrong with fighting exclusively for animal rights, as we discussed at the very beginning of this live stream, right? There is nothing wrong with doing that. So there's that. Okay, the next line in this says, you don't understand the first thing about oppression or fundamental rights. Then he goes on to say, either you are against all oppression or you are a clown, which is ridiculous. By the way, before I explain the rest, address every single line in this, what I would like to do is like show you what's coming up right here. He says that you should donate all your give all your money and resources to a slaughterhouse worker, right? So this is the interesting part that's coming right up, right? So make sure to stick around till then. Anyway, so let me just address this, right? He says that you don't understand the first thing about oppression or fundamental rights. Either you are against all oppression or you are a clown, right? And this person is a he, I know. But here's the thing. You cannot possibly be against all oppression. That's not possible. And I think that's like a very childish expectation. I wouldn't say childish, or maybe I would. But yeah, but that's not a realistic expectation, okay? Because like even in his own profile, I have to this day never seen a single post about Northeast, the liberation of Northeastern tribes, right, or the autonomy of Northeastern tribes. This person has not made a single post about the liberation of Northeastern tribes and how the people in the Northeast are oppressed, right? He has not made any posts about that, and as far as I know, he has never spoken about any of that. So yeah, like if you're going to do that, like he's not doing it even himself, right? He says that you have to be against all oppression, but he is not against all oppression. Sure, he is not contributing to these oppressions, but he certainly isn't voicing his opinion against every possible oppression in the world. And yeah, so there's that. Like none of us, like there's like so much suffering in this world, right? There's so much suffering that even if you wanted to cover everything, you just can't. That's just a sad sort of reality of the world that we live in. This is not to say that we must contribute to some oppression, obviously not, but it's not a realistic expectation to sort of have not a realistic expectation to say that you have to be against everything, because you'll get tired, you'll get exhausted, and it's not possible. Okay, here's the interesting bit. Okay, before we sort of move on to that, I think one has to be like really, I don't know, I'm not sure if privileged is the right word, because they're going to come after me for calling this person privileged. But anyway, I don't care. This person is a mainlander, Dalit or Brahmin. Mainlanders are mainlanders, right? Don't take that too seriously. Some of the nicest people I know are mainland Indians, right? Some of my closest friends are mainland Indians, right? But yeah, mainland Indians are at the end of the day mainland Indians. So yeah, I guess I do think I have the social sort of license to say this, don't I? I think you have to sort of really privileged to say that you have to be constantly against all oppression, not just not participate in oppression, right? Because obviously, no matter how underprivileged you are, you must never contribute to any oppression, right? Right? Like no matter how underprivileged you are, if you contribute to some oppression, that's not justified, and you must stop, right? But you cannot be against all oppressions, and if you are to be against a lot of forms of oppression, what you are doing is like you have the time for it, don't you? If you're speaking out against every oppression that exists in the world, you have to have the time for it. You have to have the sort of income to sustain yourself while you're doing that, right? So this being against all oppressions thing, it's a symptom of privilege, really. I have nothing else to say to that, because like poor people, if you talk to them, they don't care. like even though that they are oppressed themselves because of a system that continuously exploits them, right? Like ask them if they are against certain, like if they advocate for or advocate against all oppressions. They don't have the time for it. They're too busy looking for a way to survive, right? So yeah, this is ridiculous. Anyway, here's the interesting bit. This person says, before demonizing slaughterhouse workers, give all your money and resources to a slaughterhouse worker. If you're all such a righteous, you can see that you can see that beautiful word there. I don't swear, so I won't say it. Yeah. If you are all such a, do some sacrifices, won't you? If enough of you do it, there will be no slaughterhouse work. Do that, and then we will talk. I think here's the thing about slaughterhouse workers, okay? And this, what I'm going to tell you now is not an opinion. It's not a hot take. It's a fact. It's a fact of the psychology of slaughterhouse work. And the reality is this, that slaughterhouse workers suffer from various kinds of diseases that you simply would not get from working in a farm, right? And this is not to say, by the way, that slaughterhouse workers are the victims. I'll get to that part soon, but these are just the facts that I'm laying out before we discuss whether or not slaughterhouse workers are victims. So slaughterhouse workers will suffer from a certain kind of PTSD, right? PTSD stands for post-traumatic stress disorder, if I'm not wrong. Let me just quickly check that. Post-traumatic stress disorder. So that's what PTSD stands for. And slaughterhouse workers suffer from perpetrator-induced traumatic stress, right? It's a form of PTSD. And because they are continuously killing animals, right? And like make of that what you will, right? Consider them whatever, however you want to put it, right? That's the reality of it. This is not to say that they are victims. We'll get to that part soon, but there is that, yeah. So slaughterhouse workers go through all of that, right? And so there's that. But the reason that I personally would not sort of advocate for demonizing or going against, like picking on slaughterhouse workers and going after them, is because, well, like for as long as there is a demand for all of this, right? For as long as people demand the flesh of animals, no matter how many slaughterhouse workers you get out of the business, there will always be people, more people who don't have an income, who will be willing to come into their place and do the work because they need money, right? So I would not suggest going after slaughterhouse workers, because it's not the slaughterhouse workers that are keeping the oppression of human beings going on. Not the oppression of non-human animals going on. So there's that. But for as long as people keep demanding this stuff, it will keep going, right? If tomorrow every slaughterhouse worker in the world resigns, there will just be a batch of new ones, right, who will do the work. But to say that, but we have to understand, right, why some vegans would be sort of against, sort of have this anonymity, this sort of hatred and anger at slaughterhouse workers. And it's not because these vegans are privileged morons who don't know anything. There's a greater, deeper reason to this, right? And let me explain this with an example. So in the December of 2019, right, the government of India passed an act of parliament in which the act of parliament was called the Citizenship Amendment Act of 2019, right? Let me see if it was called, if the 2019 bit is there. It's called the CAA 2019, right? Citizenship Amendment Act 2019. And when they did that, right, people in northeastern India just erupted in protest, right? They erupted in protest because what this act would do is it would bring in immigrants from Bangladesh into India, but they would mostly be asked to stay in the northeastern states. And the northeastern states, first of all, do not have the economic capacity to support such a large batch of immigrants, right? And secondly, the people who would be most affected by these immigration, would be harmed sort of by this immigration, would be indigenous tribal people, right? Because they are like, if anyone is going to suffer, right, it is going to be them. So people just erupted in protest. And when that happened, right, what the government of India did, and you will not believe this, the government of India deployed troops, right, paramilitary troops, not police officers. They deployed paramilitary troops in northeastern India to suppress protests. And these paramilitary officers, you know what they did? They killed protesters. They shot them down, right? And yeah, that's what happened. It was a whole mess. I saw them, like, I was there, right, when these troops arrived. I saw them. They were like literally like 10 meters away from me, and I saw them, right. And like, they were not killing people at that point. Don't worry, I was not in any kind of danger, but that was going on, okay. And the reason I'm telling you all of this is because I think it relates. Like, and like, when all this happened, obviously the people from the Northeast were furious, absolutely furious, how the government was using its own paramilitary forces on its own, on its own citizens, right? To the Northeastern people was outrageous, right? But the point is that, like, even if all of those sort of paramilitary officers resigned at the very moment, right, what would happen? Do you think the violence would just stop? Absolutely not. They would just bring in more troops, right? So, so there is it can be both. The anger of the Northeastern people was justified, right? But at the same time, it also makes sense to say that, don't go after these individual officers, right? Go after the system, go after the central government, who is who is approving of all of this, right? So like, both of those things can make sense, right? And if someone sort of has an anger at these officers for shooting Northeastern people, especially Assamese people, that is not a sign of some kind of Savarna privilege, right? That is not a symptom that the person who hates these military officers, paramilitary officers, it's not a symptom that they are like bad people, right? It's not a symptom that they are evil people. It's just a symptom that, well, that they care about Northeastern Indians as equal human beings. And the same goes here in the animal agriculture industry. I hope it makes sense why I'm telling you all of this. It can both make sense to say that, don't go after slaughterhouse workers, because, like, just if every one of them resigns, it's not going to solve anything, right? There will just be more slaughterhouse workers tomorrow. We need to go after the system that sort of creates this system, like, where non-human animals are continuously oppressed, and we need to ask the consumers, like to stop, like, creating a demand for all of this, right? So there's that. And I just also he made this point, right? Where is this? Yep, okay. So yeah, he has this brilliant, not so brilliant idea of giving slaughterhouse workers money. Well, what would that solve? Like, seriously, like, if you gave slaughterhouse workers, the best thing that would happen is, like, they would all resign. But as I've already explained, if slaughterhouse workers just resigned, that doesn't mean that tomorrow there's going to be no more animal, like, the killing of non-human animals. That's just not going to happen. What is going to happen is, like, even if these people resign because they now have a lot of money and don't need to do this work, there will just be more people showing up to work, like different people showing up to work and doing the same work. So yeah, like, and this would be quite analogous to giving money to the paramilitary officers who are shooting at Northeast Indians and saying, well, that solves the problem. No, it doesn't. Right? No, it doesn't. It absolutely doesn't. So there's that. This person actually has like a whole caption too, which I've just noticed, which I hadn't read before. Let's read this together, should we? Okay, before we do this, let me thank you all for being around. Wow, I did not expect such a turnout. This is amazing. Thank you again for all the birthday wishes. Oh my God. Last year I spent my birthday in lockdown, and it was quite like I was alone, obviously, because it was my birthday. I video called a few friends, but spending it with all of you, with all of these birthday wishes, is amazing. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Anyway, yep. Anyway, let's proceed with the live stream, right? Okay. Let's read this together, shall we? Okay. Here it says, let's have a radical shift. I'm calling all servants to give up their privilege, devote their life. Let's see if you have a cushy jobs and cushy lifestyle. Workers, now that you're demon, who are working in slaughterhouses because of you, you freeloading fucks. Okay. This post was addressed at Savarna vegans, wasn't it? Savarna vegans. I don't know if he's now just referring to all Savarna people, vegans and non-vegans people, but Savarna vegans, like whatever kind of vegans, slaughterhouse workers are not working in slaughterhouse because of like vegans. Like look at this line. Can you see the mouse? I hope you can see the mouse. Look here. Slaughterhouse workers that you are demonizing now, who are working in the slaughterhouse because of you freeloading this beautiful word. Let's like how are slaughterhouse workers working in slaughterhouses because of vegans? That makes absolutely no sense. Yeah. He says slaughterhouse work, ? Acknowledge that will you collectively redistribute your wealth, privileges, and land, powerful positions, and whatnot. Drop me a DM if you voices of the animals are ready to do all of that. Okay, this is quite ridiculous. Because you see, like no matter like how much sort of like money and like let's say every human being in the world is on equal footing, right? But for as long as human beings view non-human animals as commodities, as objects, right? Slaughterhouse work might go away. Maybe human beings will no longer be doing the work, but there will probably be machines. There are already so many machines that do this work. Like that would not solve the problem, right? I'm perfectly for, right, the sort of uplifting of people, right, and giving people certain help to reach a certain economic status and like helping them out in that respect. But thinking that will somehow end animal agriculture and animal exploitation, that's just silly. Yep. I think that's everything. Let me see if I have anything else I want to talk about. I have a note. I noted down some key points that I wanted to talk about, and I know I noted something down, and then I completely forgot about it. Like what I can see the points, but I don't know what I was referring to when I wrote that down. But anyway. We have a super chat now. So before we move on to the Q&A, if you have a Q&A, by the way, drop them now. I will answer all of them, like as many as possible, rather. So yeah, drop your questions now, okay? Here's a super chat from Omlan Rai, who is my friend. Thank you, Omlan. So he says, happy birthday, Aditya. keep growing and keep up the good work. Best wishes. Thank you so much. Yeah, I've known Amlan since we were like little boys, and means a lot. Like I didn't actually think that people who people who already know me outside of YouTube would be joining in, because like most people aren't vegan, right? But yeah, thanks Amlan. Really appreciate the help. Yeah, really appreciate the support. Yeah. Okay, so if you had sent to everyone else who is watching, by the way, if you had sent questions in the chat, I probably missed every single one of them. So if you could send them all again now, that would be just great. Okay, so I have a few different kinds of questions. I have a few questions on my Instagram, right? I put a story asking for questions a few days ago. There are some questions in the live chat. Guess we'll start with the live chat, right? Yeah, let's do this. What percentage of your diet was animal products before going vegan? A lot, right? A lot. Like I like when people think India, they probably think a vegetarian country, and that's not the same as a vegan country, right? Veganism and vegetarianism, as discussed earlier, are very separate things. But this part of India where I'm from, right? It's northeastern India. It's like we have a sort of like, I would say that we consume the culture here is more heavy on meat consumption and the consumption of animal products than like the rest of India. So I think the way I would phrase this is more than you would imagine. Yeah. Anyway, let me first, I'll first answer the questions that I received on my Instagram, because I put that up so long ago, and I should answer those first. But anyway, keep the questions coming. I'll answer them if I can. Yeah. Okay. Here are the questions from Instagram. Okay, which one should I go? Okay, here's a question from Robin the Soy Boy, who says, do you have faith in humanity still? I do. By the way, this is a question I received on Instagram, right? The question is, do you have faith in humanity? Let me just quickly put that on the screen. Oops, never mind. So the question is, do you have faith in humanity? So I recently read a book, right? The book is it's called The Diary of a Young Girl. It's Anne Frank's diary, right? Anne Frank being the Jewish girl who was in hiding from the Nazis, right? If you're unfamiliar, although I would imagine that most of you watching would know who Anne Frank is. So yeah, that's Anne Frank, right? And like I read, like when she was in hiding from the Nazis and when she was escaping from the Nazis, she maintained this diary where she would note down all her thoughts, right? And towards the end of this book, right, she, like right before she was captured by the Nazis, she wrote that, and I think it was like a month later that she was captured and killed by the Nazis. In the middle of all of that, Anne Frank wrote that in spite of everything, I still believe that people are really good at heart. And she wrote that while she was in hiding from the Nazis, right? And that kind of really stuck with me, right? If someone in hiding from the Nazis can appreciate that, that people are really good at heart, then I, who am like not in any danger myself, right? I think I can certainly appreciate, accept that. And like what's worth noting is that Anne Frank was running away from the same kind of danger that that like non-human animals face today, right? And I know, so yeah, if she can appreciate that, then I think we should be able to too. Okay, we have a super chat from Alex. Wow, that's a lot of. Thank you so much, Alex. Even before I read your message. Anyway, let me read your question. Alex says, "Happy birthday, Aditya. One question: given the apparent obviousness of veganism when you've understood it, what keeps you from thinking that most people are mind-numbingly stupid or that they don't care?" Good question. Because when I first went vegan, right? When I first went vegan, I used to think like how do people not get this? Like people would make these arguments, oh, it's natural, oh, it's this or that, and I would say like naturalistic fallacy, this fallacy, that fallacy, red herring, this and that, and I would sort of like people would like just not get it, right? And I would say in my head I'm just going like, how do you not understand this? It's so simple. This is not difficult ethical philosophy that we have to oppose the torture of innocent creatures. The torture of innocent creatures, right? This is not difficult ethical philosophy. So like when people don't get that, yeah, it's something difficult to tolerate. But what I think what helps me sort of cope with this is understanding how this belief system is like indoctrinated into us as children, and how this system is sort of maintained. And there's the system of carnism, and I would like recommend looking into the psychology of all of this. So what helped me with this was reading Melanie Joy's book, Why We Love Dogs, Eat Pigs, and Wear Cows, right? That sort of really helped me with this. And I recommend everyone reading that. But like if you haven't read that and would like sort of a brief introduction sort of to that book, what you could do is you could watch my video, right, by the same name. I sort of made this video, right? And you can watch this. Let me sort of show you. Share screen. Stop screen. Yeah, okay, so here's the video that I made, okay? And this is a sort of brief introduction to Melanie Joy's book, and everything she says in her book it's a very brief introduction. It's less than 15 minutes long. I recommend everyone watch this, right? It's a video that I made. So I do hope you folks like it. Yeah. Here's the link to the video. I don't know if it will, if you can click on it, but yeah, but you can just search for that like title, right? Why We Love Dogs, Eat Pigs, and Wear Cows. Look for this and then put in a soy theist. It should bring it up, or just look through my videos, okay? Yeah, that helps me a lot. So I would sort of recommend that. Okay, let me just again, thank you so much, Alex. This is amazing. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching the stream. I've still got many questions to answer, right? So don't leave just yet. Thank you, Alex, for the amazing contribution, and to everyone else who has supported via Super Chat. I think I'm starting to miss questions again, but don't worry, this time I'll go through them, okay? But let me first sort of answer the questions I got on Instagram, right? Okay, here's a question from an account I like a lot. Real social justice. I know the admin, but as far as I know, the admin of this account is anonymous, so let's keep it that way. The account, by the way, is called Real Social Justice, right? So Real Social Justice asks, what do you think are the biggest thing the AR movement can improve on? Okay, he probably means biggest thing that they are things, right? Oh, let me just put that on the screen so people who are watching this later on can know, right, what I'm talking about. What do you think are the... So let me start answering that, right? So I think what the AR movement meaning the animal rights movement, what are the things that we can improve on? I think what we can improve on are not pandering to non-vegans, and let me just explain that in a while. What do you think are the biggest things we can improve on? Okay, so this is the question. Wonderful. So yeah, this is the question. I think what we will have to do is this. Some vegans have a sort of tendency to pander to non-vegans, right? Like say saying things like, I'm not like those vegans. And I think if we are to be taken as a serious ethical movement, we need to stop that, right? Like, in what other social justice or effort for fairness, right, would these comments even be acceptable, right? Imagine for a moment, if someone who advocates for racial justice and who says, I'm against racism, right? I'm against racism, but if you're for racism, I won't stop you. How ridiculous would that be, right? And if some movement did that, that movement would not be taken seriously, right? And something else that I think we should stop doing is sort of demonizing other vegans, lying about other vegans, not necessarily just demonizing, just lying about the vegans, right, for clout and that kind of stuff. I'll give you an example, right? When people say, when people call some people, some other vegans as white vegans, white supremacists, racists, for simply not having the same beliefs as they do about what works and what doesn't work, which comparisons are valid, which comparisons are not valid. I think that needs to be stopped, right? Because when we do that, what we do is when we start throwing the words like racist and sexist and colorist, homophobe, whatever around, what happens is first of all, it becomes so much more difficult to spot the actual racists, right? Because when you see racists everywhere, you see the real racists nowhere, right? You call someone a racist, you call another person a racist, you call 10 people racist who are not actually racists. When the actual racist shows up, you say, oh, that person's a racist too. No one believes you, right? So there's that's one problem. The second problem when you're doing this is, when you're calling everyone racist, is people don't take you seriously, right? It's related to the first one, and they don't take you seriously, and veganism starts looking like this fringe, teenage thing that people do, where they just want to bring other people down for the mildest disagreements, right? And when calling people racist when they're not actually racists, I think that needs to stop, right? And if we can do those two things, right, that would be great. Another thing I would recommend is like learning how to communicate. And what I'm saying here is not that you need to like use soft language, right? If you're familiar with my content, you will know that I'm certainly not someone who tells you to use soft language. But learning how to communicate, as in like let's say like imagine there are two people, okay? One of them is all about love and kindness, that kind of stuff. The other person is all about logic, right? Rationality, facts. He's basically a logic bro. If you talk to these people in the same way, right, what's going to happen is they just won't like it's not going to work. Like if one argument works on one of these people, it's very likely that it's not going to work on the other person. So I think we have to adapt, right? We have to learn to communicate better, and we have to sort of like talk to people the way they talk, right? And if someone's being hostile to you, I think you should be hostile back, right? Not be hostile back in the like being rude and that kind of stuff. I think you should repeat their arguments back to them, right? Talk to them the way they talk, right? And I think that works best, like repeating people's arguments back to them. If they say, for example, I would not recommend saying that eating animals is the colonialist mindset. But if someone comes up to you and says, veganism is colonialist, you should point out that the same mindset that worked for colonialism also works for exploiting non-human animals, right? Which is viewing an arbitrary group as being of lower moral worth. I think you should point that out. If someone says things like, you should be kind to others, right? You should be kind to others, and you should not be cruel to people just for eating something different or that kind of stuff. If someone says that, you should not go back to them with like here's the fallacy in your reasoning. No, don't do that. What you should do is you should point out that the people who consume non-human animals, right? They are the ones who are being cruel. So yeah, I think that's all I have to say about how the AR movement, that's the animal rights movement, can improve. By the way, a note about the questions. I will not be answering questions about that C thing, because of which the thing that starts with a C and ends with a D has a V somewhere in the middle, right? Because if I do that, this stream is going to get demonetized, right? I'm also not going to answer questions regarding that V thing that starts with a V, has a C somewhere in the middle, has an N and an E, like these letters form, like are parts of that word. I will not be answering questions about that, because if I talk about that, YouTube is going to demonetize me. So yeah, please don't ask questions about those, okay? Anyway, before we move on to the next question on Instagram, we have a super chat. Okay, so Taylor Restall says, what do you do for work? Is it animal rights related? Okay, so the thing about me is I just recently finished my degree, right? I recently finished my degree. I did a bachelor's in science with a major in physics. So yeah, that's what I did. And I recently graduated. And at the moment, I'm like considering my options, right? What I'm going to do next. Most of my time is spent either studying or like making these YouTube videos, right? And because of my patrons, right, I'm able to do this. I'm able to spend so much more time on doing this than I otherwise would be able to. And because of the kindness of people such as yourself who have donated today, oh my God, I genuinely did not expect this. So because of the kindness of people like you and the kindness of my patrons, I'm able to do more of this, right? So that's what I'm doing currently. I've finished my bachelor's. I'm looking at my future options, and I'm making animal rights videos for the internet. That's what I do. Yeah, thank you. And thank you again for the super chat. This is amazing. I simply would not be able to do this without the kindness of all of you, really, right? Especially my patrons, but everyone who is watching, right? It would not make sense for me to do this without all of you. So thank you so much for watching, right? We have a few more questions to go through before we end this, right? Yeah. Okay, so I got a lot of questions about anti-natalism, and like I thought I'd talk about it, but in the last week since like I put this story up, right? I've read up a lot on it, and the thing I would like to say is that I just got more confused, right? I thought I had a grasp on it, and I thought I had an opinion on it, but the more I read, the more confused I got, right? And like not more confused, the more unsure I got of my opinion. So I really don't have an opinion on it anymore, unlike last week when I had one, which is absurd if you think of it. What I would say is that I think everyone should look into antinatalism, which is, let me give you a proper definition of antinatalism, instead of me just loading it out. And antinatalism, let me give you a proper definition, not from Wikipedia, right? Definition. Okay, where's the share screen? Share screen. Chrome tab. Antinatalism. Share. Okay, here's the definition of antinatalism. Here it is. Antinatalism, as defined by Oxford Languages, is the belief that it is morally wrong or unjustifiable for people to have children. And as you can tell, it's a very interesting topic. I looked into it a lot, and I don't have an opinion on it anymore. I need to study this for so much longer to finally have an opinion on it. There were like 3 or 4 questions about antinatalism and Efilism, and I just like to say that I don't have an opinion on it right now. Sorry, sorry to disappoint, but yeah. Here's another. Oh my god. Here's another super chat. Well, this is just unbelievable. Animals are beautiful people. Agreed. That's the username, by the way. That's a wonderful username. He says, "Happy birthday and thank you for fighting for the animals." Wow. Thank you for the birthday wish, and thank you for like watching my videos. This is I'm just so taken aback by all this kindness. Like there are 50 people watching right now, okay, and it's just amazing. I did not expect such a large turnout, and yeah. Let me go through this, right? Okay, so another one of my friends asks, what is my favorite book? See, I don't have like one favorite book, but what I will do is I will recommend a few books for everyone to read. Since I think I'm mostly speaking to a vegan audience, I'm mostly not going to recommend, or I guess I should, right? I guess I should. I think everyone should read, and okay, here's a sort of brief disclaimer before I recommend books, right? I do not agree with the authors of the book on every single thing there is, right? If I recommend a book about veganism by a certain author, I might not even agree with everything they have to say about veganism. But I think that the book is good and worth reading. So the first book that I would recommend is something that I have been like recommending throughout this video is Dr. Melanie Joy's book. It explains the psychology of eating animals, right? It's called Why We Love Dogs, Eat Pigs, and Wear Cows, right? So read that. The second book that I would recommend is Animal Liberation by Peter Singer. Okay, it's I think it's a very easy to understand book about animal ethics, and sort of lays out perfectly, almost perfectly, the sort of basis of animal rights. So if you haven't read that book, vegan or no, I think you should read it. And the great thing about that book is, right, that the main material of that book is in like the first chapter, which is like 30 pages long, right? And the rest of the book is just giving you examples of how animals are exploited and like the fine print sort of. But the main substance of the book is in this first chapter, which is 30 pages long. So do read that. The next book that I would recommend reading is Free Will by Sam Harris. It's a book that challenges your notions, and it is another book, yet another book that might help you sort of maintaining your sanity in this world that continues to exploit non-human animals to such a great deal. I will not give away what the book is about, but let me just give you a brief introduction. So we think we are all free people, right? Like we have free agents, we have the choice to make free decisions, right? And like if the clock of the universe was wound back, like when you made a decision, you could have made the other decision. Like that's what we all believe, right? Or that's at least what I used to believe, right? Like I could have chosen to not do this live stream, right? Then that seems plausible, but as it turns out, that's apparently not the case. So I recommend reading that, and it might help you coping and living in this non-vegan world, because it certainly helped me. And like not really just kind of hating every single person in this world, because that is just mentally exhausting. Right? So that's helpful. The next book that I would recommend, nothing's really coming to mind at the moment. Like I have a few books that I could suggest to you, but I'm not sure if that's related to veganism. Should I recommend books that are not related to veganism? Maybe I should. Okay, so here's a book that you should read. It's Cosmos by Carl Sagan. And I suppose, yeah, if you want more recommendations, I suppose I could provide them. But for now, let's stop there. And another super chat. Wow. Okay. Glad you like my username. By the way, no, there is no free will. Yeah, indeed, there is no free will, right? So yeah, read that book by Sam Harris. And Sam Harris is someone who should definitely be vegan. Hopefully, I'm able to meet him someday and ask him why he's not, right? That would be great. Maybe even do a live stream with him someday. That's like really far-fetched, I know, but you know, I never thought that I'd reach this, create a YouTube channel with such a large audience. So yeah, I never thought I'd reach like 1,000 subscribers this year, right? And now I'm at almost 3,000, and the channel is monetized. So who knows? Maybe someday I'll talk to Sam Harris and ask him why he's not vegan. So yeah, there's that. We remove that banner. Yeah, there it goes. Do we have any more? Okay, here's a question. Why did you go vegan? Why, how, and when did you become an atheist? So my vegan story, right? As I told you, okay, so as I told you, I was raised in northeastern India, right? And northeastern India is sort of very heavy, not, I suppose, a very heavy meat eating culture, right? It's sort of like, I would imagine, at the same level as the meat consumption in Western countries, I suppose. Like, it's certainly more than the rest of India. And so I although I was eating non-human animal flesh until I was 14 years old, I had never quite seen the killing of an animal. How I went vegan is that one day I told I told the people at home that, today I'm going to get the meat from the market, and give me some money, I'll get it for you. I'll do some of the house chores, right? And I'm not sure if that's how it's pronounced, like house tasks, right? So give me the money, I'll get the meat for lunch today. So I went to the butcher, right? And in India, what happens is the killing is not sort of hidden away, right? It's out in the streets, you can see it. And I went to the market. I asked the butcher that, I need this amount of meat. Give me some mutton, right? Goat's meat. And when I did that, right, I saw that there were 2 baby goats, right? And the baby goats were maybe 6 months old. Right? They were tiny, right? And the butcher sort of grabbed one and he brought them towards himself. And I saw the baby goat was trying to run away, and it was a terrible sight. But I was sort of expecting that, right? I went to get meat, that's something I would expect. What I was not expecting at that point is there were 2 baby goats, right? As I told you, the second baby goat was scared and was trying to hide behind a rock. And the baby goat, he or she, right? They were not he or she, they were the baby goat was kind of trying to hide behind a rock and trembling in fear. And I was not expecting that. Right? That kind of surprised me. And I realized at that point that is exactly what I would do if someone was killing my friends and I was helpless to save my friend, right? That's exactly what I would do. And in that moment, I told the butcher, don't kill the goats yet. And don't kill the goats. I don't need it today. Maybe I'll come tomorrow, maybe I won't, but don't kill the goats. And I went vegan on the spot, right? It took me relatively almost no time. So yeah, that's how I went vegan. And that's not how I went vegan. That's how I went vegetarian, because I was not aware of the cruelty of the dairy industry. So at that very point, I just stopped, right? I stopped consuming meat, fish, eggs. Yeah, because in India, eggs are not vegetarian. So I stopped that. But I was completely unaware of the horrors of the dairy industry. As soon as I learned about the horrors of the dairy industry, about which I was oblivious for a very long time, as soon as I learned them, it took me quite a long time. And it's not like I knew about it and I kind of pushed it away. I'm gradually going into that. No. 2 years later, I came across information, and as soon as I learned about it, I said that this is basically the same thing. Suffering is suffering, whether the corpse of the animal ends up on my plate or the secretions of the animals end up in my glass. It's the same thing. So that's how I went vegan. But I would consider this information, I think would not have been as effective in turning me vegan unless I had seen that earlier incident with the 2 baby goats. I still get I still think about that. Sometimes it's permanently imprinted into my memory. I know the exact place where I remember the exact place where that happened. And yeah, that's sort of my vegan story. That's how I went vegan. I think the question also asked how I became an atheist. So I was not raised in a very hyper-religious family, right? I was raised in a secular family, right? My parents are religious, right? But they sort of never invoked, forced that too much on me. They never taught me I suppose they taught me religion, but as something completely separate from what is real. And I imagine they did not do that intentionally. I'll give you an example. When I was boy of about, I think, 11. When I was a boy of 11, like me and my friends, we kind of wondered why there is so, like, well, where do all these different kinds of lives come from, right? If like baby animals come from their parents, and if plants grow out of seeds, well, it must end somewhere. Like, where does it go? And like we all decided that we would sort of ask our parents, right? And they went and they asked their parents, and some of them got the answer that, oh, God created all of this. And I was very fortunate. I asked my father, like, where does all of this comes from? He gave me a copy of The Origin of Species. That is the book written by Charles Darwin, which lays out the foundation for the theory of evolution by natural selection. So yeah, that's how I became an atheist. I guess that answered that question. Oh, by the way, before we move on, another super chat. Wow. Okay. The story, animals are beautiful people, says, the story of the baby goats made me cry. OMG, thank you for sharing. Yeah, it's heart-wrenching, isn't it? I still remember how oh my God, I'm getting flashbacks now. So I still remember how the baby goats look, the expressions on their face. It's also vivid, and yeah, I suppose well, there is, like, we make all these rational arguments for veganism, and veganism is indeed the rational choice. But yeah, there's something so powerful about seeing firsthand something so emotive like that, right? And yeah, I guess it just stays in your memory. Next question. Okay, that kind of, yeah, I'm going to keep remembering that story for a while now. I get flashbacks sometimes. But anyway, do we have any more questions on Instagram? Let's see. What's your biggest? Someone asks me, what's your biggest fear? I'm not sure. Okay, I'm not sure what my biggest fear is. But what I would say, that's something I'm really wouldn't want, right? Something I hope doesn't happen, is like that I'm unable to help to any significant amount this in stopping this horrifying moral atrocity against non-human animals. Like, for 14 years of my life, for 14 years, how many days is that? I don't even want to count. For 14 years of my life, I contributed to this unnecessary industry and unnecessary suffering, where for my own temporary pleasure, I like, paid for innocent beings to be exploited. What I hope I'm able to do within this lifetime is I hope to be able to make some contribution in undoing that. So at least that I'm able to forgive myself for the horrors that I contributed to, right? Whether it be directly through my work, or whether it be by supporting the work of someone else, by helping someone out, like whatever it is, right? I hope that I'm able to do it, and if I'm not able to do that would be terrible, and I am afraid that might become real. So I wouldn't say that's my biggest fear. I know it sounds probably pretentious to say that is my biggest fear, but yeah, that's something I hope doesn't happen, and I'd be pretty damned if it did, right? I hope to be able to make at least some contribution against this horrifying atrocity. Another question is, how do you respond to people who state veganism is a privilege? I think we covered that in this live stream, yeah? So I'm not going to cover it again, but in case you're interested, I've made a video about this. So let me show that on the screen for now. And like anyone who's watching the live stream later can just search for this title, and like they'll be able to access my video. And if I can, I'll also like put the link to this video in the description box, right? So here's the video I made. Veganism is a privilege debunked, BBC refuted. I think this covers everything, really. This was like my first video that took off, right? When I made this video, I had 748 subscribers. And after this video, like 748 subscribers in 17 months, right? 17 months of publishing videos on YouTube, and I got like 748 subscribers. I published this video, and within like 3 days or something, I had reached like, not 3 days, 7 days. That's like 1/4 of a month. I reached 1,000 subscribers. So there's this video. Yeah, watch this video, okay? Veganism is a privilege debunked by yours truly, Soy Theist. So yeah, that's I suppose that video is how I would respond to someone who says that veganism is a privilege. Yeah, so yeah, do watch that. I think that's all the questions on Instagram. Someone asked what my opinion is about woke-ism in veganism, and I think the biggest sort of downside to wokeism in veganism is that it makes veganism look like a childish teenage thing, right, where everyone's just accusing everyone of everything, and like without any substantive proof or reasoning to back it up, like calling people racist for whatever reason, like calling people racist for using certain comparisons. And I think we need to get beyond this. Yeah, I really do. I think I touched on this when answering the question posted by Real Social Justice. So yeah, that I think, unless I missed something, I think I've covered all the questions from Instagram. Let me just check it again. Okay, someone asked. Okay, the reason I'm like not mentioning the names of the people, I think I mentioned some, right? I mentioned Real Social Justice, but that's not like, you don't know the person behind that account, right? It's a wonderful account, check it out for sure, but you don't know the person behind that account. But the reason I'm not mentioning the names of everyone here is because like this was like in a Instagram story where people submit questions anonymously, so I'm not sure if I should mention the names. Although I think people wouldn't mind, but still, just to be safe, and just to respect people's privacy, I suppose. So yeah, another person asks me, favorite moment in your life thus far and something you look forward to doing. That's a great question. I have so many favorite moments in my life. I can't pick one. So what most of you probably don't know, right, unless you've been following me on Instagram, but like most of you don't follow me on Instagram, right? You should. But anyway, if you've been following me on Instagram, you'll know that I have like a little sister, right, who is like 10 years old at this point, right? And like when she was born, right, I was so happy, right? Because until I was like 12, right? I'm 22 now. She's 10 now. So when I was 12, she was like, she wasn't born. So when she was born, right, like that made me really happy, and yeah, I'm so grateful to have her in my life. And like, yeah, that's one of the happiest moments of my life, really. What else? I think something else would be like, I wouldn't say favorite moment, I suppose, but it's just like watching this community grow, this YouTube channel grow. It's quite amazing. I cannot believe this, because I've been doing this for such a long time, for 3 years, and the pace that it has picked up, and like so many of you just came together and like and are supporting and watching the things I'm saying, and like just watching all that support is one of the delights of my life. So yeah, the question also asks what I look forward to doing. Well, I guess what I look forward to doing is, I don't know, I just want to continue doing this, and I want to help like stopping this unnecessary industry of animal suffering. That's what I like to do. Yeah. Any more favorite moments? There are so many, but these are like these are the top two things, I suppose. Another super chat. Wow. Okay. Animals are beautiful people says, never fear that you will not be making a difference for the animals. You already are. Thank you always. Wow. That's very kind of you. Especially like not just with the words, but like the amounts of super chats you've sent. Wow, that's just unbelievable. Thank you so much for the kindness, and your words are very kind too. Anyway, I need to sneeze. And the sneeze just disappeared. That's just very unsatisfying. Yeah. Okay, let me answer the questions from the chat. When do the questions begin? I'm so terrible at this. I might not be able to answer all of these, right? Because, well, like some of them just disappeared because like there were so many chats. But let me see what are the questions that exist here. Okay, Riley asks, you mean you can't be actively fighting against all oppression, right? Okay, and this is about that part where I was talking about how you cannot be against all oppressions. Yes, that is exactly what I mean. You can be fighting actively against all oppressions, but you should definitely be against all oppression, right? As in, you should not support it. And when you can, right, if someone is like being you should not support any kind of oppression, right? You should not support any kind of oppression, but it's just impossible to be actively fighting against all oppression. That is indeed what I mean, right? And this is responding to that Instagram post from earlier, like when I was responding to that Instagram post from earlier. Thank you for giving the opportunity to clarify my points, by the way. That's yeah. Okay, here's an interesting point. Some people might use the "we can't be against all oppressions" arguments against animal oppression. Okay, so here's the difference, right? Here's the difference. I don't expect everyone to be a vegan advocate, right? If someone says that everyone needs to be a vegan advocate, I would say that's unrealistic too. That just cannot happen. But the difference is that when you're not vegan, right, you're actively supporting oppression, right? And that's something I've already clarified that we should not do, right? We should not support any kind of oppression, right? We should not indulge in, like, we should not support homophobia, right? Right? And like, if you're being homophobic, you need to stop right now, right? If you're similar in the same vein, if you are supporting animal exploitation, you need to stop now, right? But what we cannot do is we cannot expect everyone to be a LGBTQ plus activist, and we cannot expect everyone to be an animal rights activist, right? We should be against all oppression, as in we should not support any kind of oppression, right? And we should not tolerate any kind of oppression. But to be an activist and to be active against all oppressions, that is just impossible. And the same applies to like homophobia, racism, sexism, and speciesism. But at the same time, you cannot, if you're supporting a certain kind of oppression, that's unjustified. You need to stop. Yeah. So that's the difference. Okay. And I hope I didn't come across as too rude in responding to that, because I promise that's not my intention. I appreciate the input, and in fact, by sending in this chat, you've given me the opportunity to clarify my points, and that is always appreciated. What other questions do we have? Someone's here from VCJ. That's VeganCircleJerk on Reddit. Thank you so much. I love that subreddit. I love the VCJ subreddit. Thank you for being here, Simon. Appreciate it. And I just love the VCJ subreddit. It's my favorite subreddit on all of Reddit. It's better than r/vegan. I'll give you that. So if you folks are on Reddit, you should check it out. r/VeganCircleJerk. Okay, check that out. What else? What else? Do we have more questions? I swear I saw many, but I can't find more. I can't find them right now. Okay, here's one. So atheist, have you ever read the short story, The Ones Who Walked Away from Omelas? I did. I watched this. Not watched this. I read this short story right after watching a video from Alex O'Connor where he recommended this story, and I recommend that everyone to read this story, The Ones Who Walked Away from Omelas. It's a wonderful story, and kind of really explains it was probably not intended in that manner, but it kind of explains and it puts in general terms, right, how being vegan feels like. And if you read that out to someone, and they would be like, oh yeah, I would do that too. And when you point out the natural conclusion of that is going vegan, that might be a powerful tool in your vegan advocacy. What else? Do we have more questions? Okay, I might not be able to get to all of them, so use the super chat if you want to, if you have more questions. But yeah, I'm trying to get to all of them, okay? But in case I've not answered your questions, feel free to send it again, right? Whether it be by like a normal chat or through like a super chat, whatever it is. Yeah. Okay, here's a question. How old are you, birthday boy? Take a guess. And while we do that, let me see the new comments. I don't think we have like any more light questions. But yeah, let me answer the question, right? I am 22 years old. So yeah, that's how old I am. I'm getting old. Like people used to say that, oh, you're so young, and that kind of stuff. You're so young, and already you have these opinions, and that's impressive. Like that's the kind of comments that I would get. But I guess I'll stop getting them very soon, now that I'm turning old. Yeah. But yeah. Anyway, I'm 22 years old. Interesting username. What languages can you speak? Okay, so the languages that I can speak in order are the first two languages. They're kind of intermixed, right? So I belong to the state of Assam. That's an Indian state, right? And in Assam, there's like this general like the most commonly spoken language is Assamese, right? Assamese, and I can speak that, right? But not but and I belong to a certain like tribe, right? And like I'm the descendant of a certain indigenous tribe. So like the people of this tribe, they speak in a certain way. I would say it's Assamese, but it's spoken so differently that people who don't share the same ancestry and who do not belong to this tribe cannot understand when we speak this language. So although to me it sounds the same, right? It sounds different to most people. So if you want to count that as one language, count that as one language. If you want to count that as two, count it as two. So there's two languages. I'm counting it as two because everyone else seems to think that that's two languages because they cannot understand the former. Then I can speak Hindi, right? Hindi is the language that I suppose most people associate with India, right? There's that. And finally, I can speak English. I would consider English actually to be my third language and Hindi to be my fourth language, simply because I came across I became more fluent in English earlier than I even started speaking Hindi. So yeah, those are the languages I can speak. They can be either 3 languages or 4. Favorite Indian food? I would say my favorite Indian food is dosa. It's a South Indian dish. It's like really the South is like really far from where I live, but I just love dosa. Yeah. Any more questions? Let's see. Riley asks, do you consider yourself a consequentialist? I'm actually not that familiar with consequentialism. Like I'm familiar with the idea, but I just don't know enough about it to label myself one or not label myself one, right? So yeah. Happy birthday. Thank you for being an activist. When do you feel the happiest? I suppose one of the things that really makes me happy is when people message me and tell me that they've gone vegan because of me. That's just always amazing. And like whenever these messages from all of you, they make me really happy. There are other things, of course, but yeah, but they are like not mostly relevant to what we're discussing here. So yeah, that is something that really makes me happy. When someone messages me to say that they like my videos or that they've gone vegan because of me, yeah, that just makes my day. Oh, this is an interesting question. If non-vegan leftists are bad, how do you feel about non-leftist vegans? You see, the thing about non-leftist vegans, right? The thing to realize here, the first thing to realize here is that being a leftist, right, is about your opinions on like where you stand between the balance between personal liberty and government intervention to help improve society, right? That's what being left or right means. I realize now that that's not exactly right. That's not the technical definition of those terms, but in summary, right? That's what those terms mean. Not not just in those terms, but like where you stand on policy and all that kind of stuff. So being a leftist, although I would consider myself one, perhaps, right? I prefer to look at each individual case like separately, right, and decide which is the best possible solution in that regard. There's this notion that being a leftist makes you a good person, being not being a leftist makes you a bad person. While I would disagree with most almost everything with someone who is right wing, they're not necessarily, right? They can be, but they are not necessarily a bad person, right? So yeah, so first thing to realize is that, right, everyone who is not a leftist is like, I disagree with them, but they're not bad people. The second thing to realize is that a leftist non-vegan, right, non-vegan leftists, they are contributing literally to the killing of innocent animals, right? A non-leftist vegan plus a non-leftist vegan, although you might imagine that they would be against sort of LGBT rights, which is not always the case, right? Or anything like you'd say they are against certain human rights, which is not always the case. But even if they are, right, even if they say they are, right, they are not actively paying for someone, right? Paying for someone to kill like any disadvantaged group, right? Yeah, so there's that. But the first thing to realize there, of course, is that by not being a leftist, one doesn't automatically become a bad person, and that's where I think I would put it. And what else? Yeah, and just the asymmetry of all of that, right? The asymmetry of the fact that vegan non-leftists are not paying for anyone to be killed, but non-vegan leftists, right? Non-vegan leftists, they are certainly, by the very nature of being a non-vegan leftist, they are paying for innocent beings to be tortured. By being a leftist non-vegan, someone can be bigoted, right? And we must oppose that. We must not tolerate that if any kind of bigotry is at play. But by simply being a non-leftist vegan, they're not paying for that, right? Yeah, I think I've rambled on for quite a while and repeated myself several times, so I'll stop there. But yeah, thank you for the question. That's a great question. Another super chat. Wow. Okay. Happy IRL Cake Day, using Reddit lingo. Oh, okay. By the way, this comment comes from Indo Rock. They say, "Happy IRL Cake Day," using Reddit lingo. What's your opinion approach regarding carnists who claim preaching veganism will only turn them away from it? I think that's an excuse. I think that's mostly an excuse. Like, for example, I think that they don't want to confront the reality of what they are doing, right? And but like if you don't make someone realize the horrible immorality of eating animals, why would they ever go vegan, right? So it's something that I think we have to do, right, to make them realize the immorality. My approach to that, right, if someone says that, right, would be to say, like, look, I respect you enough to talk to you in the same way that I would want to be talked to, right? So if I was contributing to some grave immorality, I would want someone to come up to me and tell me, this what you're doing, Aditya, what you're doing, so atheist, is absolutely immoral, and you need to stop right now, right? I would want that for someone to do that, right? I would want people to do that, and I would say that I expect that for someone to say that to me, and I respect you enough to treat you as my intellectual equal and talk to you in that same manner, right? That's my approach. Thank you so much, Indo Rock, for the super chat. It's amazing. Do we have? Here's a lighter question, I suppose. What are you eating today to celebrate your birthday? I'm a terribly boring person. What I ate today was I ate rice, dal, I'm not sure if that's a English word, but yeah, it's a sort of legume. Fried potatoes and some potato nuggets and some French fries. I love potatoes. So yeah, that's what I ate. The reason I'm not eating anything like fancy, I suppose, is because we're in lockdown in India because of you know what, which I cannot say. Otherwise, this video is going to be demonetized. But yeah, that's what I ate for my birthday. I'm a very boring person. I think there were some comments about the let me see. I thought they were funny. Yeah, I can't find them anymore. I think that will be all. Yeah. Do we have more questions? Let me see. I missed so many. I'm so sorry. If I have missed anyone's super chat by any chance, right? I don't think I have, but if I did, what I would want you to do is like send me a screenshot on my Instagram, and I'll respond to your super chat if I missed it during the live stream. But I think I addressed everything. Let me just go through the regular chat and see if there's something that I could respond to. I think I've covered everything, no? I think we can end it here. It's been over 2 hours, and there are, wow, okay, there are 34 people watching. Okay, that's not my dog. It's the dog that lives in the neighborhood, and yeah, it's the dog that lives in the neighborhood, and for some reason the dog is going, really making some noise, isn't he? So yeah, that's not my dog, but I hope like he or she, whatever, like the dog is doing all right. Okay, which state in India are you from? I'm from Assam. Any last questions? Students need to realize that they're actually stubborn. I think that covers everything, right? I'll hang around for a couple of minutes and then we can end this. I would just like to thank everybody, oh my god, for showing up for this live stream. And yeah, we have so many so many comments in the live chat that like the ones before, like they just disappeared, right? Because you need to make space for all of it. Yes, I can't believe so many of you showed up, and I'm so grateful. Thank you so much for all of these birthday wishes. Yeah, it's amazing. It's been amazing. Thank you for making for being here on my birthday, right? It's been amazing. Thank you so much. I hope to do one of these again soon, and I'll see you next time, right? And yeah, bye bye.